Hi, everyone, and welcome to the One Podcast. When I had a dream of doing a podcast a couple years ago, we were in the same group, and I could name 5 people that I knew I would want to have on a podcast. And this is one of those 5. I remember coming across you probably over 3 years ago. We were in the same worlds, but didn't really know each other. So maybe it's even longer than that. It had to have been longer than that. It was probably closer to 2020-ish. I remember my very first impression of you was there was an elegance mixed with a power, but also a sense of magic. And I remember thinking, excuse my voice, this podcast, I apologize, but I remember thinking, ooh, what is it about her? I was so intrigued because I liked the way you carried yourself, the way you presented yourself. But I also thought, I've never met a person where I felt like knowing her was magic. So I'm excited for everything that comes through on this podcast. This is Kristen Stuart, and she's going to tell you all about the work that she does and the magic that she creates. I hope for anyone who sees this or hears this, that before we start, I want you to be present and open your thoughts, your heart, and your mind to there's something here for me, because she has a lot of gifts. And this specific podcast and YouTube will go to the people that it's meant to go to. So if you're hearing this, there's a reason. I want you to hear her stories, to hear what she says, and then listen in your heart for how what she's saying will energetically translate to something that you've been seeking. So welcome, Kristen. I am so excited to have you. Thank you for joining.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much for that beautiful intro and the way that energy magnetizes. It is all frequency. And so it's a true honor to be here to share in this conversation with you. And I feel that these conversations are the ones that are creating the ripple. They're creating the shift. And so I'm excited for what wants to come through today, and for all of you who are listening, for the way that you felt magnetized to share in these conversations and the expansion. Because together, what we are doing with every word, with every thought, with every connection, heart connection, soul connection, is remembering. It's ultimately this path of remembrance, remembering our way home. And so I look forward to being in this frequency with everyone and letting the experiences that have been my journey, my story, and the way that the light wants to move.
These thoughts, these words, these interactions, these connections, it's the remembering our way home. I would love for you to really quickly expand for someone who's never even considered that, so that we tune them into that right away as we get into your story.
This time that we're in right now, Lisa, and you're knowing this was the time to launch this podcast, of course, is you in the deep listening, that we are ultimately in the biggest shift in consciousness that humanity has ever experienced. Planetary ascension is happening. It's being reflected and expressed in so many different ways. And ultimately, we're all receiving these, it's like upgraded codes of truth to come home to the soul truth within. And so we've got increasing frequencies that have been pouring into literally the electromagnetic field of the earth. So we've had powerful solar events, powerful energetic events, lifting the frequency. And so when we think about it, everything is vibration at a certain frequency. And so when we have high frequency light coming in, it's meeting our field, our electromagnetic field, and it's lifting it up. And so what happens is immediately any of the density that is unable to integrate with this higher frequency will rush to the surface for us to see. This is awakening, because what we're doing is awakening to the sovereign truth of who we are, the infinite expression of wealth that we are here to be, the recognition that we're remembering our divine roots. We're remembering that we are divinity expressed, and we're coming home to the one, becoming one with the one ultimately. And so we're remembering our light, we're remembering our soul. There was a disconnect that, let's say we came here, I call it, on this earth mission. We said yes to remember who we are in our light, in our joy, in our infinite expression.
Those of you that hear this, that are actually listening to the podcast, I strongly invite you to go find this on YouTube. There's something about watching Kristen as she talks that carries her energy even more than your voice. If you have the time, well, I'm inviting you to actually make the time to come and watch her when you can. So how did you come to these understandings, like the very beginnings? Because I know there's going to be people that hear this completely resonate and they're like, yes, I get this. I know this. It's empowering me from the inside out. And then there's others that are going to be like, wait, okay, there's something in me that's saying yes. And I have no idea. How did this start for you?
I would say it started initially on a yoga mat in 2002. So I was called to begin the practice of yoga. At the time, I was a personal trainer, and I wound up, loving the practice, knew that there was something bigger going on than going into these different poses. And what I started to understand is I was learning how to channel light through the practice. I knew I wanted to share this with others and support others in the expansion of their light, the expansion and the deepening connection to the soul. The translation of yoga is to yoke. It's to become one.
Mm-hmm.
So it's recognizing that we are in this human experience as a soul, remembering our light, the power of the practice. I mean, it's a purification practice, purifying consciousness, purifying the mind of the subconscious debris, purifying the channels and pathways within the physical body so that we've got higher prana, higher life force and vitality moving through us as the density purges out, as we're detoxing mind, detoxing the organs, and building. It's like a vessel of strength and suppleness to then be able to sit in meditation with comfort, to go into to merge with the divine, to merge with the one, to come into that place where there's no longer separation. And so I knew I wanted to teach it right away, signed up for teacher training. And for many years, I worked as a personal trainer, yoga meditation teacher, and a international hiking guide, actually. So I'm based here in the Canadian Rocky Mountains, and this has been home since 2001. And I really know that foundation for me was, propelled me onto this path. And there are there's different junctures and choice points where things really started to pivot. And for me, I'd always been attracted to spiritual teachings, to the power of nature as my church, so to speak, to Indigenous wisdom. At this point, I was starting to study shamanism, so Indigenous wisdom, especially rooted in the Andean lineage, which is that of the Sacred Valley of Peru, the Quechua and the Caro people. And so all of this was calling me to Peru for an experience in 11-11-11. So I'm going to jump to this point.
Yes, I love this.
My mentor at the time, she was offering a yoga retreat. And so I immediately knew I needed to go. I was selling my clothes. I was selling whatever I could to ensure that I was there. Like that was how strong the call was, The wealth codes were not active in my life. That was something that really started to come in the last 5 years, is what I will share. And I was in Peru. I wound up in a very powerful experience of oneness. I had a Kundalini awakening. I felt myself merged with the field, so to speak.
Wow.
And everything it was like ecstasy. It was ecstasy. It was bliss. It was, wow, there's something bigger here. There's something bigger for us. And everything was expanding. I already had a plan when I was returning that I was going to be opening a yoga studio, which was my dream at that time, Sacred Roots Yoga. And so I have this experience. I tap into something otherworldly beyond anything my human has known before. It's like once you feel it, it's like once you see it, you can't unsee it or unfeel it.
Yes.
I came back to the Rockies, I opened Sacred Roots, and then the journey went to another level. And what I will say is within 7 months, I was on the floor in panic attacks, eventually led into suicidal psychosis. And the studio, closed, obviously. And I began the climb of my life.
Wow.
And so I had been living in a pretty high adrenaline state a lot of my life. My husband, his first career is as an international mountain guide. And so the timing of this was all, it was all perfect. I was an ice climber, alpinist, rock climber. That was how I operated. So it was really stretching my edges mentally, stretching my edges physically, and enjoying that. However, what I had created within me was a powerful addiction, and adrenaline was my drug of choice.
Wow.
And so I'm opening a business, and the irony, it was a yoga studio that took me out. Yet I was in a very expanded state of consciousness, and I also recognize I'm still human. However, I was ignoring all of the signs, because what started to happen is, the stress and the fear of opening a business. I didn't really have a safety net. I was going all in on passion and vision without proper business sense at that time at all. I was pushing it, and just different stories that you hear in your head of, well, it's going to take you about 5 years, different people's stories, limits, right?
Yes, the limits we take on. Keep going.
Yeah. It'll take 5 years before you generate a profit, expect to work so hard. And so I was basically 6 a.m. till 11 p.m. daily. I was going, and I didn't recognize the difference between adrenaline as something that, it can be supportive and activating for us, and the fact that I was literally taking myself into a massive crash, and anxiety was what I was experiencing. And so I was on a fast track to burning out. I was operating out of alignment. I was super stressed. I stopped sleeping by May. And within 2 months of not sleeping, I mean, you're not healthy. You're not healing. I'm stressed about money. I'm stressed about everything. And I was keeping it all inside. I wasn't saying anything to anyone, because I felt like I need to be strong. I need to do this for myself.
I can handle it.
I can handle it.
I'm going to get through this. Okay.
I've spent 18 hours in the mountains before, run out of food and water. And it's like, what's wrong with you? Keep going, get up. Because I was literally struggling to get out of bed and what. So till July 31st, 2012 was my 37th birthday, and Sacred Roots closed. I began the healing journey, and I descended deeper, because my greatest fear at that stage of my life was to fail. And so what I perceived was that I had absolutely failed. And the journey, it was a descent. I was, in the hospital on suicide watch, still trying to figure out how to save the studio. Like, it was so wild. And then I'd have pockets of what felt like clarity. This was the interesting piece. And then periods of time that were so dense, it felt like 30,000 pounds of weight on top of me. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. I was so sensitive to everyone's energy. And of course, there's a lot of fear rising in my husband, my family. They're witnessing this. I'm not well. I'm clearly not well.
Yeah.
And I was still trying to push through it all. And so, eventually it was the surrender. And I had an experience of, it was like, whether I was awake or lucid, I had this experience of climbing a ladder out of an infinite depths.
Wow. Wow.
And I remember thinking, this is going to be the climb of your life. I felt like I was at the bottom of the Grand Canyon that was at the base of Mount Everest. That was that feeling. And I remember this dream or vision. It was like I was swinging ice tools to hook the next rung of the ladder to climb out. I was like, I'm so tired. I don't have this. And I was swinging. And then all of a sudden, I heard the voice of the Divine Mother. And she said, let go, surrender. And exactly. I tangibly had this feeling of falling and falling and falling until I hit bottom. And it was like I looked up and went, okay, I've got to learn a new way of being. And so I began the path of healing my relationship to the feminine. I also feel it's important to say at this point that underneath all of this was a cracked foundation of sexual trauma that had not been healed. So I also threw myself into the mountains to get strong so no man would ever assault me again.
Mm.
And it was the protection and the running. I was running from my trauma story, ultimately, thinking that I could drop it, tuck it away, and be stronger than it to overcome it.
I was trying so hard not to interrupt, but I feel like there are some key things that I think would be really helpful. I'm sure that there will be listeners that have not heard this story before that are in that transition. I mean, it's a 7-month span between this really high, and then you come back, you open the yoga studio, and then about 7 months later, you're in the lowest of lows. And that is such a short time. I'm sure for some people, they're like, I've been there. High, and then all of a sudden, how did I get in this low? And it's so confusing. And then you go into self-judgment. Part of this is that you're not sharing with anyone. You're trying to solve it yourself. And then you do realize, okay, there is a serious problem. So you end up in the hospital and you're still trying to save the studio. So before we get to surrender, because I love that word and I want to talk more about that, were there signs along the way, okay, I should be paying attention, but I'm not, and then I should be paying attention, but I'm not, because I feel there's going to be someone, when they hear some of these, they're like, I'm hearing that, I'm feeling that, I'm seeing that. I don't want to be where she was at 7 months. So I didn't come across Kristen for any random reason. I'm hearing her for this. What were some of those things that if you could look back now that you realize here was a signal, and had you talked with someone about it, it might have resulted differently? But share a little bit about that. And then I would love for you to expand on what surrender meant to you, because I'm envisioning like, okay, I'll come back to that first. This part.
Sure. Yeah. It's when I looked back, I saw the signs were all along the way because I felt like I was constantly running. I wasn't, the irony, I wasn't breathing is literally how it felt.
Yeah.
And
The grand poses, just not breathing.
right. For me, it was just allowing the pressure to build and not acknowledge that there was pressure building, not acknowledge that I was starting to teach classes and I would do one side and I would forget the other side. Like my brain was really showing it was not healthy. It was not functioning properly, which was due to the stress, the anxiety. It turned into panic attacks. And so it's like when we feel as though we're on a runaway train.
Yeah.
That's the sign. It's not keep riding that train. That train's about to go off the rails. And so there are the feeling in our body gets to be one of more ease, where we're the groundedness, the clarity in thinking, the sleeping normal. For me, that's about 9 hours a night. And not feeling this constant reactivity, this constant zinging in my nervous system as though I was on 10 shots of super powerful coffee, with 10 extra Red Bulls on top of that type thing, where my nervous system is losing it. And it was a pressure to perform. It was a pressure to succeed. And it was also a recognition for me at that stage. When I look back, a lot of the validation was coming from what I was doing. I had not cultivated a depth of of contentment, of love within myself.
I can tell this is going to be important. Not to interrupt you, I want to focus on that in just a minute too. And I do want to add, I think for some people, it could be easy to be confused. Like, okay, she's opened, had a dream of opening a yoga studio and starts it. Obviously, when you start a business, there is going to be a heightened level of stress, and you're not going to be sleeping well, and you're going to have these things that are unexpected, especially if we don't have a good business foundation or have our finances figured out or those type of things. So we're not saying that all of those signals are completely wrong, but we are inviting you to recognize when your body's signaling you, get support, make sure you're sleeping, make sure you're breathing, make sure you're nurturing yourself so that you can balance out the natural stresses of running a business. And then there are these signals that she was experiencing that are growing and growing and growing and growing and growing, which ultimately lead to one of the most tragic experiences where you end up in a hospital. And then to give up your dream, which I know there's a lot of times giving up the dream in and of itself is the heartbreak. And yet what I want you to hear from her story too is she followed through on the dream. And for her, that dream wasn't the most natural progression of what her body wanted and her soul wanted, her mind wanted it. And then on the other side, once she was able to release that, so many more things were ahead. And so I also want those that hear this who are thinking or who are in that stage of giving up the dream and what comes next. I want you to be inspired by there's so much more that comes next. And this is what she does a lot of, is she helps you to recognize there's so many things ahead. I want to focus on that word surrender, because you caught me when I'm imagining standing at the very bottom of the Grand Canyon, looking at the tip of Everest. Two things I would love for you to address. What in you even made you want to start climbing? Because I'm envisioning, had I saw the distance, I don't even know if I would have wanted to start climbing. And you're imagining with the ice picks doing it. And then talk about what the surrender was. Surrender doesn't sound like a beautiful thing. And yet there was, So talk about those two things, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, my whole body is chilling as we're having this part of the conversation, right? Well, the whole talk so far. And so in me, I knew the power's within me to climb. It's what I do, actually.
Mm-hmm. It is you. Yes.
It's me. It's what I do. It's what I know. And there was this, call it a subconscious trust in myself that I'll figure this out.
Okay.
I'll figure this out. I'm grateful for that. There were enough seeds planted within.
Mm-hmm.
And no, I did go to the edge, because the edge was activated by my landlord selling that space, which released me from the lease, actually.
Oh. But that didn't feel like a release. It felt like a devastation.
It was so devastating for me. To me, it wasn't, oh my gosh, thank you, this is very good. It was, it's over and you failed.
The total
That's all
of the dream.
Yeah, that's all I could lock into at that time. Meanwhile, on the other side, I was already working a lot in the field of wellness, supporting others through the wellness path. I was determined to figure out how to heal myself, to understand this process, to heal myself and recognize what had happened, rehabilitating my nervous system, my endocrine system, the most incredible sisterhood of healers, as I've always leaned toward natural healing, though, of course, I was in, Western medicine and healing modalities. And a sisterhood reached out and said, hey, we heard you're having a hard time. Come to us and let us support you to get back doing what you do. And I'll never forget that, because it was months of receiving treatments as a gift from all of these different women in my community. I was like, this is so powerfully healing, and this is what we get to do for each other. And it was rehabilitating my heart. It was reprogramming my mind. I did a lot of heart math work as well, which was creating that coherent field and starting to really understand and see myself for the truth of who I was. So I used to look through a lens of not enoughness, right? Not fill in the blank, enough, right?
Yes, yes.
And it was the invitation home to see the divine reflected back in me, to recognize that it gets to feel so much better. Life is not about struggle and pushing and forcing. It's about this deeper listening. And when we can, it's almost like surrender into ourselves, which is surrendering into the trust that we are so supported, which I was. When I look back, the way that it all moved, it was this divine team absolutely supporting me all the way to walk me home, to really understand who I was. My gifts and channels started to open bigger
Yes.
in certain traditions. In a lot of the shamanic traditions, psychosis is actually considered your shaman's initiation. And I don't call myself a shaman. I don't resonate as a shaman. I receive the teachings and the medicines. I know that my work is with energetics and with light, and also bringing women home to that embodied soul truth and divine power. And so I started to see the way the focus on the heart, the focus on love was continually expanding me. And I had a beautiful experience with my mentor at the time, who I had been in Peru with, and she had come to visit me, and she literally held me in her arms. I was so heavy, so dense, and she held me in her arms, and she was praying Christ consciousness into me. That planted a seed of light, a seed of feeling, because I felt like all my life force was coming back. I actually felt human again, because this frequency and consciousness was bringing me alive.
Mm.
That planted a tangible seed of, it's here. This is here. So the journey then began, really the path of the divine feminine for me, out of 2012, 2013. It was about a year before I started to work again.
Yeah.
It was quite a healing journey for me. And it was also, I felt like a fraud. I had so much shame around, I am supposed to be here teaching about divinity and light and love and living in your soul expression. And meanwhile, I was over here trying to check out. And so that was quite an interesting journey for me to navigate mentally.
What do you think helped you with that most? Because I'm sure there are people that you have lived one thing and then you change either careers, or you hit that time in life where you start to reprioritize something new, or you have an experience where you realize there is a new focus I should be doing and I need to let that go. And it feels like, well, that's who I was. That's what everybody knows me as. And we should be allowed to talk about the fact that we're not supposed to be perfect in either one of those roles, but it's not something that's always out there. So
Right.
what helped you to be like, okay, I can release this shame and
Yeah.
I can be proud of this? Is that obviously part of your journey?
Yeah. I mean, it was a lot of forgiveness, self-forgiveness,
Mm.
right? Releasing all of that and going, there is actually something bigger here for me, because that yoga studio and this experience that I've had, it doesn't happen without it becoming where I'm headed, right? The
Mhm.
purpose. I mean, the yoga studio would have closed in 2020, realistically. Like, that was
Right.
clear. And
Talking
so
about that. Yeah.
let's just get this out of the way, bring you into your awakening, bring you into recognizing, embodying the truth of who you are, and starting to walk others home to this on their path, and living in this place of being in constant communication with spirit. Spirit is who we are. These are my beliefs. This is my, been my experience. And like diving into the ancient wisdom teachings on the different expressions of the divine feminine, the goddess path, all of these pieces, right? And so that really opened a new, my door just blew open right in that moment.
That's it. And literally the door opened. I really want people to hear that part about the yoga studio would have closed. And it did speed up her path to who she was meant to be. And I want people to take a moment and look at am I in something that is closing or ending and I'm looking at it like a failure? Or have I had something in the past that feels like a failure where we can realize actually it never was? I don't believe in failures. I believe that everything is leading to the next thing, but everybody talks about failure, and that's not what it is. We try something, and the only time you ever fail is if you actually decide to stop, right? So the people who created businesses and they stuck it through for years and years and years, if something doesn't successfully turn out the way you want it, it wasn't a failure. It was part of your life lessons. I wish people talked about that more. And it wasn't meant to continue going. It was one of many options. But if it isn't part of your highest soul purpose and it quote unquote isn't successful, it's not a failure. Look at what you learned from it. I like to say, don't just look for the lessons, but look for the character traits you developed in that experience, because those character traits are what's key for what's ahead. So I want people to hear that when you look at your own failures, quote unquote, in your past, or the ones that you think you're sitting in right now. Is there a way that those were actually moving me forward faster to who I am, either recognizing that I am now or that my soul is telling me that I am to become? Okay, keep going.
Absolutely. And that's it. There was something bigger. And so we're being led. And when we talk about that word surrender, it's, can we surrender into the prompts, the inner voice, the voice that is guiding us towards something? It's an unknown. We don't know what it is, yet there is a knowing, because the feeling internally, once we understand that, you know, the feeling of expansion, the feeling of trust,
Yes.
that we are literally walking in co-creation with God's source. I can use the word universe, whatever language resonates for everyone listening. This is a co-creative process.
Mm.
We are constantly being prompted forward, higher. And at every choice, there is a higher choice point. And we're here really making our way home to that most expanded state, actualized as a soul. When we move the human out of the way, it's not to ignore the human experience. It's filled with duality. We're not here to bypass. And I think there were points of time on my journey where I was trying to bypass my trauma, ultimately, virtually bypass it. It's like, I'll focus on the light versus go in and let the energy move out that had locked into a place that I tucked away so that I would never have to face it again or think about it or experience those emotions. Yet everything was moving me towards my destiny, and it always is. And so, you know, that trip to Peru in 2011 turned into returning in 2014 and every year after that for a number of years up until 2020 with groups. You know, my accessing of the Akashic Records opened through this experience, and I could feel myself being prompted into a higher level of my work. And what happened was a lot of women saw the yoga studio like skyrocket and drop. I disappear, I come back, and it literally, women asked if I would coach them. And so that, right, like that part, it chose me. And so that's when I started to move into, at the time I called myself the conscious coach, coaching on consciousness. You know, how are we living all of these pieces and sharing from what I had learned. And then that continued to evolve. And 2012 was considered to be the last big wave of awakening before what we've been experiencing this last 5 years. And so it was like the first wave for many of us of waking up.
Right.
The spiritual awakening of, oh, there is something bigger here, and I am about to find out and walk this path of embodiment so I can then turn around and be of the highest service for the highest good of all. And so when, you know, I had prompts that 2020 was coming with a big shift for the world. It's the way the downloads come through, the voice of spirit, so to speak, tapping into higher dimensional wisdom, tapping into codes, ultimately, awakening
Yes.
codes.
Yes.
And it was, I could hear, get ready. Everything that has been your journey from 2012 to 2020 is for the now.
When you were saying, as we're stepping forward, we're stepping into the unknown, but then we also have a knowing inside. I think that is a really important point for people to hear and be able to take in, is that in order to become and express the highest version of yourself, we have to have that trust. We have to consistently be stepping into the unknown, and yet you can always trust in that knowing. And I was going to ask, oh, okay, well, how do people know that? We know that. You know it. Anyone
Feel it.
listening, you know it. You know when you have that instinctual nudge. Everything I teach is all about reconnecting to your intuition, how important your intuition is. If you feel like you don't know what that is, think about it for a second. You've had those nudges. Don't go down that road. Don't trust that person. Do this right now. We know what that is. And then the more you listen to that, the more you feel that, the more you trust that, there is always that knowing. It's just that our human and our choices, we sometimes choose, like you were saying, with the human experience, sometimes we choose to not listen, or we've put ourselves in circumstances where we've numbed ourselves from that consistent opening and that consistent communication. I like how you had said, I've been writing down all these things I love, but you said there is always a higher choice point. And I thought, ooh, I need to remember that, because in many circumstances, you can choose one thing or another, and there is always a higher choice point. Is that what you meant by that? Because that's what I thought, ooh, that is a great thing to contemplate as you're moving forward, or where you're at today, listening to Kristen, like, in my instincts of what's ahead for me, or the things that I have put out there that I'm planning, that I'm envisioning, what is the highest choice point? Because I could choose this and this might be good, and I could choose that and that sounds fantastic. It might taste good and look good. And then what is the higher choice point? And if we are consistently looking for that, we're always being led into the unknown with the knowing.
And you can feel the frequency shift with that too, right? What is the higher choice point? It's expansive, and we can sense that, right? And so, we're recognizing, follow the frequency.
Talk more
Anchor.
about frequency. For people who are new to frequency or haven't experienced a ton of frequency, what's an initial quick thing you can do to start paying attention to just rising the frequency a little bit?
It's checking in with self and noticing. It's noticing, what am I feeling in this moment? What am I thinking in this moment? Notice the connection here. Bring awareness back into the heart. We'll go to the heart, which is the portal.
Always.
And focus on a thought of joy. Focus on the feeling of you in your dream state, your expanded state, and notice the frequency shift. Like, you go into a room or a building and you can feel if there's heavy energy there.
Yep.
Right? Or you say, I think someone just had a fight here, or something has happened here. Like, we're incredible at sensing. We've learned to turn that off. And so when we bring it back to, tapping into intuition, I always say, personal train your intuition daily. It is a practice that compounds. And then we're making a decision within 9 seconds. And so the information that we are making our decision from, we want it to be as clear, pure streaming consciousness as possible. I could call it God consciousness or source consciousness, because we're making decisions through the subconscious mind. That is what usually takes the lead, based on what we have known, based on what we've experienced. We have to recognize what is within the subconscious is everything that has ever occurred, not just in our own lives. It's the full. So when we are looking at being powerful creators in our lives and in creator frequency, it's very expanded. There's a different energetic state that you will feel within yourself. higher frequency. And it's not about high vibe, it's high frequency is truth frequency,
Yes. Yeah.
which feels so grounded and strong and powerful inside of us
Yes.
when we take the time to pay attention to it.
I think sometimes we confuse energy, frequency, vibration, vibe, but frequency has a solidness to it, even though it's not solid. It has a different weight in your body, and it's literally connected to a knowing. Like you
Yes.
recognize the frequency when you hit it, and you recognize the frequency when it drops. You can train yourself to the higher frequencies. And I loved in your story when you had this mentor who held you and planted the seed. And right as you said that, it was such an understanding that is your gift. That is what you do. You see with your clients and those in your world the virtual hug of them, and you're energetically planting the seed in them of the knowing and helping to light and grow the seed that's already in there. Talk about your work, what you do with people, because I love how you talk about light and you have all these codes, and I love your work. Tell people what you do and what you enjoy most about it.
Sure. I see someone's highest soul expression,
Mm,
and it's a feeling. I feel the fullness, the bigness of their light and what they're destined for, their destiny. And
that's
they're
so
actually,
exciting and terrifying at the same time. I want to be like,
yeah, what do you see?
right? What do you see? Okay, wait, don't tell me. Wait, maybe yes, no. Don't look too close. This is amazing. Keep going.
And so it's literally working with people's light field. We have our soul. We have something called a light body, which houses our soul. And then we have our human.
Really quick, how would people, or is it the same thing as an aura? How would you differentiate the two?
The aura reflects the light of the light body.
Love that. Thank you. Because I think that will be helpful. That's beautiful.
Yeah. It's like you felt something with me,
Mhm.
right? Frequency. You came on the call, you said, okay, I can feel like I'm feeling this. And almost every podcast I go on, that's one of the first things, because right away we enter the space together. Our frequency fields are connecting and communicating. We're feeling the expansion. We're feeling the light. It can feel like, little tingles and zings and whatnot. It's like, this feels so good. There's such a purity here. There's such a depth of love here. And so when I'm working with clients, whether they're coming in as business owners, I mean, I've worked with Olympic athletes. I've worked with C-suite. I've worked with 6 to 9 figure CEOs being their secret weapon in their back pocket, because we're continually working their light, working the light in their field, which is creating a new reality for them. Because as we are expanding in our light, so imagine within you, this gives a visual that I do love, and I think many will connect with listening. You within you are the expression of 10 million rays of diamond sunlight. That is the essence of the soul.
That's incredible.
But what has happened is, through the course of time, we had a big descent of humanity's consciousness,
Mm-hmm.
which is around the time of the fall of one of the ancient civilizations known as Atlantis. And that's when war began, and that's when everything started to shift. And so consciousness got heavier.
Yes.
We got heavier. And we moved through the dark ages. Like, we look at history, we've moved through world wars, we've moved through a Great Depression, and all of this is dense consciousness
Yes. Yes.
over top of these 10 million rays of diamond sunlight. And so it's like there's all these caps over top of the essence we are. And it's connected to story, to consciousness, to our unique path.
Mm-hmm.
And so as we open our light, it's like we start to pop the caps off of, and more of our light blasts through,
Yes.
which is the truth of who we are. And even as I say that, I literally feel the expansion of the infinite light which is our essence as a soul. And we are here now in this human suit that is vibrating at a low enough frequency that we're in form. We are matter.
Yeah.
And what we're learning and why this time frame has been so incredible and challenging and difficult is because we're experiencing something that we've never experienced. Humanity has never experienced this level of light support.
Wow.
In this denseness of the human experience. So it's like this light is trying to lift our third dimensional body into a higher vibrational state, which means,
I don't mean to interrupt you. Re-listen to that. We have never, the earth and humanity has never experienced this level of light support. The amount of light that is trying to come through each of us as humans, never before. And you are that. You're a part of that. So it is trying to come through you, and we've never experienced this before in history, and you are a living part of that. Please keep going.
yeah. I mean, ultimately, what an honor that we are here at this time supporting what's coming. And as we liberate our light, and what is the path to that? It's recognizing that we are here to express as infinite light, infinite wealth, infinite joy, play, love without any conditions. There are no limits, and we're here to remember that we come from one light, source, God. And then we each fractaled off into our unique individuated self, which is beautiful. The singularity we are here to be and express as uniquely, each vibe, style, all the things.
Mm.
And as we release the density, which it has had people, in comparison, in fear, ultimately. It's all expressions of fear, right? Which for me, it was fear of failure, then the shame and the guilt and all these pieces. And it was like, as I let go of more of that, I just kept popping brighter and brighter and brighter and brighter and brighter, and then started to understand what's actually going on with planetary ascension as we are moving into a higher dimensional field of collective vibrational consciousness.
I don't think I have ever felt such a level of urgency, for lack of a better word, in really having everyone who can possibly hear this or see this recognize that you matter. You matter so much. You're not here by chance. You're not here by accident. The things that you've been through, the things that you're experiencing, the desires of your heart, the love that you feel, the dreams that you wish you could bring alive that you're too scared to admit, all of those matter. Like, we're all a part of this. Your mission is so big, Kristen. I hope for anyone who finds this and hears this, I hope that you look for her and find her and work with her. But even if you aren't at that place yet, to even hear her voice and just take a second to rewind and listen and really understand, I am light. I come from light. I am light. I am a part of light. I am my own unique, special version of expressing that light in my way. And I've never, ever felt so strongly about the message of the one. I knew when my brand came to me that was important. And I knew from the one woman to the one podcast to the one movement to all of that, we are one. You are one, a very vital, irreplaceable one. I am one. You are one. And all of us came from one. So we are still one. And I just really hope that if there's any message that carries through, however you find this, that you really do take that in. This is what Kristen's gift is to be able to see this and express it in a way that carries a frequency that I really hope goes straight into your heart to really get, okay, I matter. And what am I going to do about it now? I really matter. And everything that I've been thinking matters. And there are dreams and visions that are coming through you that matter to the whole world. Okay, keep going. I love this. I love this. I'm sorry for interrupting. I just get so excited. I just feel like this is so important. I feel like this is so important. I'm sure you guys can hear that and feel it.
Yeah, and we're here to add our light to the collective.
Yes.
That's the ultimate, the greatest gift we can give the world is our light, our joy, our play, our wealth, the highest version of ourself. And it comes from that, it goes back to that surrendering to the highest version of ourself, because we love in our human to fight this, to resist this. And that point of resistance, which is creating a friction, which is really building a fire, to transmute what is in the way so that we can be this living expression of light, of divinity, of love for the world. Each of us carry unique codes. Each of us are a key piece of the puzzle here for the world. Every single individual has a unique blueprint, and this is what we're remembering is our divine blueprint. And we're restoring the divine blueprint of the earth with this as well. It's all connected, which makes sense.
Yes.
And so we get to be here with these visions and these dreams and these passions and these prompts and the calling. It literally is a calling.
Yeah.
Whether it's to visit certain lands around the world where we're picking up more codes of remembrance. And that's a lot of the work I do with my global retreats and whatnot. It's also, we are reclaiming a frequency of wealth on the planet in a way that it has never existed before.
Yes.
And so as we come into the embodiment of this, as we come to see ourselves as this, as these expressions, feel the energy of this, like it's expansive. It's, oh my gosh, I get to follow the light, follow what feels like light. I always would say to my clients, the opportunities, the people, the invitations, and you are here, you, me, we are here as these literal pillars of light, of infinite power.
Yes.
God power.
I want to say this, and it's going to make me laugh, and I'm not taking away from the seriousness, but it actually brings me a little bit of joy. Like, I picture there are some of you that your light is like that ball that we used to in the roller rinks. We would go around and they would have that light that reflected everything. And some of you are meant to be like the brightest neon green bright light out there, and some of you are meant to be soft like that street light, the one lone street light when someone's walking home in the rain. Like, I want you to recognize your light is supposed to be unique. So if you want it to be this funky kaleidoscope of many bright lights, like, be you, shine your light brightly. It is not meant to be the same as anybody else's light out there, and we want all of them. I like the bright lights that make me laugh. I could never be a bright neon light, or, there's stoplights. I want you to ask yourself, like, what is the way I shine? How am I unique? We're meant to be unique. And I think that's the hardest thing to really take in, is that you are a unique light. You're part of the whole, but you're a very unique part of it. I admire Kristen, but I'm not meant to be like Kristen. And yet years ago, I would have given anything to like look and figure out how she does it. And can I be more like her? And what do I say to do that? And like, I want to be elegant like her, and I want to be gifted like her, but that's not my calling. My calling is different, and yet we'll connect and we'll be those pieces of the puzzle. And so please hear us when we say you are light, and you're a part of light, and you're a part of our light, and we're a part of your light. And whoa, I'm feeling this in my heart. Like, we are all connected. But in order for us to recognize and see each other and to connect on those frequencies, you've got to be shining your light your way. And be
right there.
so proud of it. Like, let it be bright and bold. And you have no idea. I'm going to get emotional. I'm emotional.
And it's all energy, energy and motion. And that's who we're here to be. We are energy moving. And the more we move as light, the more we move in our joy. I mean, this is This is why there was an ascension 2000 years ago, is to leave a path of light behind for us to live in light, not struggle and suffering. That was the illusion. And so we're here recognizing we get to be literally the pillar of heaven on earth. We're it. We're bringing it through us. So what is heaven to you? What is your definition of heaven, of feeling that expanded state, of living in greater harmony and peace and joy and wildness? You know, we've all got our unique expression. And we're here to light that up, like crank it up, turn up the turbojets on X, right? And have so much fun with it too. And that energy right there, when we think about, you know, the frequency of play, the frequency of joy, it's so magnetic and is like that light is pulsing, and those in resonance with it are coming in. They're like, bring me into this field of light. This is what I want to do. And, you know, in the work that I do with clients, that's a lot of it. I remember having this woman, she had built an incredibly successful engineering firm, huge engineering firm. And she said she wanted private in-person sessions with me. And she said, I pay you to be in your light. She was navigating some health challenges. And she said, everything subsides when we are in this frequency field together. And this is where we're recognizing the power of frequency, the power of different hertz measurements that are supporting healing on, you know, healing us on a cellular level. And where I'm going with this is in 2014, in a meditation I had while I was down in the Sacred Valley of Peru, I was presented with these wisdom teachings of, you know, you are a carrier of divine feminine light codes. It's time to walk my daughter's home, was the voice I heard from the Divine Mother. And what we are birthing is the new human. And the next expression, like I'm going to take this into, you know, the science realm now. The next expression of humanity is called Homo luminous.
Which has to do with light. Yes. What's the definition?
Evolution. Because what we're actually doing is transitioning to a more crystalline crystal consciousness versus carbon. That's the physical piece that's going on this ascension path. And, you know, a lot of these source codes really started pouring into me in 2020 in a bigger way. In a flood. It was like a flood of information that was a lot for my human. And because I had experienced what I had experienced in 2012 and had, you know, deeply embodied different practices to navigate these higher frequencies, because it's like suddenly being plugged into a socket that is running 10,000 wattage currents through you, and your plug is the wrong plug-in, right? When we travel, it's like, make sure you're plugging the right plug into the right socket, because otherwise it can blow the system. I had a blowout in 2012. I wasn't ready to handle that level of energy. I wasn't ready to handle that level of frequency. And I got to, because it's part of my path and what I'm here to do now. And so whether I'm working with women on really activating and supporting them in the journey, because when you start to awaken to your sacred gifts, like the clairsentience, audience, voyance, and we all have them.
As you work with women at all different phases. I mean, you do retreats and you do masterminds and you help women activate the codes, recognize the codes, expand the codes. So if you know you have them and you want to expand, or like she was saying, if you have elements of your life that are wildly successful and yet you know there's more, she's there for you. If you haven't even started to recognize that you have codes and you don't know how to activate them, she's there for you. This is her gift and her calling. And I've never met anyone like her who does it so well. How do people find you? Where are you? All over social media? Which are your favorites?
So I love hanging out on Instagram. So you can find me at _Kristen Stuart, STUART. And the website will probably be live by the time, you know, this is out there, but I've got a new website coming, KristenStuart.com, where we're up leveling everything. It's like a new bandwidth, because I keep saying yes to the mission. I keep saying yes to the prompts, and keep expanding. This evolution is infinite ultimately, and new truths keep coming through.
I love
it. So for those that are interested, I'm talking about the new discoveries in Egypt right now and how I had sensed those when I was literally in the Great Pyramid last in 2022. I felt that beneath the pyramid.
Wow. And she's
And
taking
so
people. When are you going to Egypt?
in November, we're going over the 1111 portal. It's always a very symbolic date for me because that's when my awakening really began at a big level, was in 2011, 11, 11 in Peru. And Egypt and Peru are very connected energetically and with the light. That's for another conversation.
Yes.
So I love working with, all women and men. I've got more men coming in as well. And that's when I started to move away from being focused on the sacred feminine reclamation, the sacred femme, and just opening the field, because we're recognizing the balance that we are here to embody in our divine masculine and our divine feminine within. Each of us have these, and this is what's supporting us in coming home to that unity consciousness. It is the balance. My life was way out of balance. And so I got to wake up to see, and also to be called to follow the calling higher in the purpose and the mission that I'm here for, to support the collective as we are moving into a whole other reality of existence. And, from powerful CEOs to, I've got spiritual entrepreneurs coming to me more for the business side of it. But I meet you where you're at, and we go where your soul's ready to go. And that landed so deeply for me because I went to the edge. And my work, I'm not here to do deep trauma work at all. It's the light work supports the inner shifts.
Yes.
However, going to the edge and then coming back, the journey and the incredible PhD I received from that, understanding on a physical level, supporting people, their physical body, the mental body, the spiritual body, opening your gifts, bringing you into an embodied expression of the divine. And then you go out there and you blast the most epic life. That's what you create.
Oh, as you said, shifting away from your original sacred femme, and now that you are having more men come into your world, and it really hit me. Like, I started branching away from the one woman, and I was that was a download. That was important. That, yes, but that's not now. And I firmly believe that. I think we do need that partnership. There are so many wonderful men rising at the same time as so many wonderful women, and why not support all of it? Well, I mean, we're definitely great divine feminine, and that's what we want to do, but there are also men that would love that support, and I love that you offer that to everyone. She's going to Greece. She's got masterminds, Egypt. If you came across this, you didn't come across this by chance. I want people to come and find you. Kristen Stuart. You can find her on every social media. I will include links below. And I don't want to end this, but we will. Is there anything else that you want to say before we end? And then I have a question for you too.
My greatest invitation is that we see the light of the truth we're here to be and live wholly expressed as this. We play full out in our light and in our lives. It is all a divine orchestration. We're finding our way home to bring it back to this, home to our truth, home to our soul, home to our liberation, home to the freedom and the peace and the harmony. And this is what is creating the new paradigm on the planet. It's being born through us as we live expressed as it.
Yes. Yes. And for some reason, I feel called to say this. I'm a pretty serious person, and I love seriousness and depth, but I also want to say some of you are meant to make our way home light and fun. Like, be the funny.
Oh, yeah.
Be the joyful you. I love the funny, joyful, fully expressed. Like, you guys light my life up. So for those of you that are that, I know this is a serious conversation, which I deeply appreciate from everything about me. There are some of you little light bubbles out there that are just waiting to pop. I need you. Shine,
Yes.
bubbly, bright, happy, joyful. There will be some of us that will take this very seriously and go into the heart. And then the rest of you that just bounce off the walls, we need that. Be that. This is such important work. And I'm so grateful to you, Kristen, that you have experienced everything so you could become this woman today to serve everyone that has found you and everyone that is looking for you or that will find you. And I'm so grateful for the light that you shine and for the way that you are willing to consistently evolve your work so that you can serve all those that need you. The one question I love to ask before we end is, considering where you're at right now and what you see for your future, how do you feel that you would love to answer this statement? I am the one who.
I am the one who walks you home to your soul light so that you can live as this and create as this.
Yes, you are.
And we're all walking each other home. That is, those aren't my words, that's Ram Dass, but that's it. And let's do this.
Yeah.
And my mantra is LFG, it's
But
let's freaking go. And it's time. It's time, and it gets to be fun. And I think the more fun we're having, the more joy we're radiating, the younger we become, the more wealth that is on its way to us. And this is the new wave of leadership. So let's go.
let's grab each other's hands and make it fun. Let's run each other home. Let's walk and run and play and jump in the puddles and have the best time as we walk each other home. I have loved this. Thank you so much, Kristen. I have appreciated all of you that have been listening or watching, and I'm sure we will have you back again soon. Thank you, everyone. Have the best day.